fundamentally in our language, we think of menstruation as this untouchable, like shameful subject that we do not talk about. I think that the period stigma exists for a number of reasons. I mean, first and foremost, it is one of the first, biological phenomenons that really distinguishes male from female, right? It is very gender specific, and as a biological phenomenon, it also marks when a body can then become pregnant as well. And so as society is creating gender roles centuries ago, or relatively recently in some cultures, I think that mark of menarche, which is the first period, suddenly became this milestone when gender roles were constructed to be when a young woman could be a wife and a mother. Period stigma has fostered menstruation to be thought of as this taboo topic. Literally, the word taboo comes from the Polynesian root tapua, which means menstruation. So that's part of it, right? Of course, period poverty exists, and we don't even know that period poverty exists because it is this taboo topic. At the same time, part of that stigma is saying menstruation is something that we hide, that we keep to ourselves, and menstrual hygiene is not a right, it is a privilege. And that idea of menstrual hygiene not being a right is at the basis of why we have such a problem with period poverty today. My passion for periods comes from a really personal place. I sort of stumbled upon this issue at a time when my family was experiencing living without a home of our own ourselves. It really just hit home for me because it was at a time I was thinking about privilege and realizing that period poverty is something I had never experienced, but that the majority of even like the social justice movement has also neglected to think about for a while. I would define period poverty as not being able to afford an access to period products due to a lack of income. And I define the menstrual movement as the fight against period poverty and period stigma, fighting for equitable access to menstrual hygiene for all. And I think that period poverty is an issue that we are not even aware of how big it is. Like, we are just starting to do the studies that we have been dying to do for years. And the first citywide study that was done last year found that 46% of low-income women in St. Louis had to choose between a meal and period products. And Period, my organization, just released the first national study on period poverty in schools in the US and found that last year, 84% of teens have either missed class or know someone who has missed class due to a lack of access to period products. So this issue is bigger than I think anyone is even imagining right now, but at the same time makes sense because I think a misconception is thinking about period poverty as a separate issue to poverty, when in reality this is a necessity, right? Menstrual hygiene is a necessity. So just as other people might not be able to fully afford necessities and food and shelter, this is also one of the things people struggle to afford. So today, 31 states in the US have a sales tax on period products, considering them luxury items, non-essential. Meanwhile, products like Rogaine, Viagra, and penile pumps are considered essential goods, necessities. And that sales tax literally exists because it acknowledges menstrual hygiene products as privileges, like literally luxury items. And that's why I think I've been so passionate about taking down the tampon tax, because the tampon tax actually doesn't affect people who aren't experiencing the most poverty, right? The tampon tax affects people who are able to afford period products but are struggling to make that purchase. Outside of our work fighting the tampon tax, we're fighting for period products for women in prison, for homeless women, for people, menstruators who can't even afford period products in the first place. And the argument there is that they shouldn't have to have period products or need to have access to period products because they're not essential goods. So the tampon tax is sort of this necessary Trojan horse that we have to fight with before we can address overall period poverty. For anyone who wants to get involved in the menstrual movement, you can go online and simply just do some searching and find what legislation is already in the works to address period poverty. And if there isn't, start looking for other examples and taking it to legislators. Here are legislators that my tax dollars pay to represent me and my other constituents. This is an issue I care about. This is an issue that my peers care about. So we're going to take this matter to our legislator. And I think that just creating that relationship and putting public pressure on them does something. And I think that we need to feel that political power in all of us.